T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
What's up, y'all? Happy Monday. Happy after WrestleMania week, Craziness Monday. I'm exhausted. I'm figuring everybody else is exhausted too. We have so much to get to and so many adventures. And in one of my adventures, I went to Tom's Grill for, I can't even remember the event. There were so many events, but I met so many people, but I actually met this gentleman right here, former AfterBuzzer. We kind of crossed paths in our AfterBuzz land, but we didn't but you know, once you're with this, AfterBuzz is like a university. Once you it doesn't really matter if we didn't cross paths then. We're here now. Cedric Walton, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And you said happy after Mania Monday. I can't believe it's Monday. This weekend has been a blur. It's just nonstop, everything going on. Like, it doesn't feel like Monday.
This was my first Mania. And I think everybody's talking about the weekend, but my Mania started on Wednesday night, essentially, because I had to pick Stephanie up from the airport. So to me, that's the start of the Mania work week. So to me, it was like 4 days, 4 hours of sleep, maybe, lots of editing, lots of interviews. So it was crazy. So when people just talk about the weekend, I was like, yeah, it wasn't the weekend. And I'll get into shout outs and because Women's Wrestling Talk was like everywhere and it was amazing. But tell me about your WrestleMania experience.
Well, this is my first WrestleMania since the Orlando WrestleMania back in 2016. I believe it's actually my fifth going to. And there was no way I was missing Mania here in Los Angeles. I live an hour away, but still, no shot. And it was honestly great. This might be my second favorite Mania, because my favorite Mania is my first, and that was actually the one in Arizona for Shawn's retirement match. But that'd be my second favorite Mania just because it was comfortable. The environment was really good. The energy was high. I was able to meet and talk to so many people. It was just great. I thought the show was great. I didn't have any problem with night one or night two. I thought top to bottom, great Mania weekend. I think they really put on for Los Angeles. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, I was the traffic. The traffic wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been. LA traffic is already bad. So for my folks who are not used to traffic, it was probably a lot for them, but it wasn't. And then also too, we were working a lot. So like, for instance, at the Crypto, I started my days off at like 7 a.m. So I got in with parking and like all the things. So it was a nice, they kind of centered things around. So you either buy Crypto, because that's where they had the press junket on the hotel right across from there. And then you had SmackDown, then you had NXT, and then you go to SoFi, and there's that. So that was the two main. So I didn't mind the breakup of the two. For people who are Ubering, that's a whole nother situation depending on what part of the city you're coming from. But yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been. So they managed to keep a lot of stuff very localized, which was really, really good.
Yeah, I thought that part was actually pretty buttoned up pretty well with having the Superstore downtown right at LA Live. So it's easy for people to actually do things outside of the Mania related events as well. So
yeah,
hats off to WWE for doing a good job.
Very true, very true. Do you have one WrestleMania? It doesn't have to be WrestleMania like the show, but like overall, one moment where it was just like yo, like whether it was a person you met or an event you went to, or it was just kind of a memorable thing beyond WrestleMania, the show.
So yo, like you said, it was your first WrestleMania. This was my first Wale Mania, which to me was like true kickoff of the, because I didn't know what to expect going in. Like I'm writing an article about it right now for Daily DDT. And it's hard to define exactly, to truly define what that is. And I bought my VIP tickets the first day early. So like, I'm just watching the, whatever you want to call it, the concert, the podcast network. And then I go to grab a drink towards the end of the evening. And I'm sitting there grabbing a drink and I look to my left and I'm like, oh, yo, that's Grayson Waller. And I look across the room and I see, oh, wait, Wesley and Roxanne Perez are just standing there. Then I see Big Swole and Cedric Alexander. And I'm like, wait, they're just chilling. And I was so like floored. So like, and everybody was dope. Everybody was nice. I met them all, took pictures with Carmelo Hayes. This is obviously a couple of nights before NXT Stand and Deliver. I thought that was my, oh, it's Mania week moment. And I was like, that's probably my favorite part, because just seeing everybody in Element just vibing was great. Great.
Yeah.
If you've never been, make sure you go to that in Philly.
Definitely. So shout out to Casey in the chat, Sammy, Bosa, Santana, Terrence, the first time I had the man. So many things for my Wale Mania story, and this actually goes to, if you should be following. If you're watching the show, you should be following us at Women's Wrestling Talk. There was a picture. So Xavier and I go like way back, and there's a picture that we all took together, and the tagline was like, Xavier is like the catalyst of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I'll tell the story again for you guys who missed the story on, like, because I've told it on several different occasions. But Xavier and I met way back in Los Angeles, in Toronto, excuse me. And I was like a PA for a TV station. Xavier was on his first press tour for TNA, and we were the only two Black people there. We gave the head nod, and we were like instantly friends. Fast forward, I moved to LA. We stayed in contact. Had no idea that he signed with WWE, because we always just used to say, the general, like, what's up? You good? You good? How's everything? But never, like, we never talked about each other's careers. So he was in LA and he's like, yo, I'm with WWE now. You should pull up. Brought me in, went backstage, saw Cena, all this other stuff. And I was like, yo, I need to support the homie. Like, we really needed it because New Day was popping by that time. So I was need to support the homie. I need to like watch wrestling. So I started watching wrestling again because of Xavier. And around that time is when I started with AfterBuzz. And around that time, X-Pac was looking for a new host. And I had mentioned in passing that I watch wrestling. So that's how everything kind of came about. Because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have kind of gotten as passionate about wrestling. So shout out to Xavier. And he hooked us up for Wale Mania too. So yeah, that's if you saw the post and you're like, wait, what's happening? That's how it all kind of came. My favorite moment, God, there's so many. For me, WrestleMania was amazing, but what I really loved, and this is gonna be my shout out time, so I won't take up too much time. What I really loved was, one, how many people showed Women's Wrestling Talk so much love. Like, from the bottom of my heart, for everybody who watches us, all that stuff, like for people to like recognize us. Nikki was on the ground. She's at WrestleCon. She was like everywhere. And for people to know and recognize, like, it's giving me goosebumps. Like, I really, really appreciate the love from folks, because when you do, I'm sure when you do this podcast thing, you're like, especially if you're serious about it, like you tunnel vision, you're just putting in the work, and you don't realize, you're seeing the numbers, but you don't realize that people, watch the show after the fact, all the things. So definitely shout out to that. And just meeting so many people that I've spoken to in the boxes for years. Sean Rossap, Nick from Wrestling Inc., It's just so many people that you've seen. That Faye Jackson, who I've interviewed several times, and she's done Creep Squad After Dark, meeting her in person, and like it was just kind of crazy. So my highlight was just definitely just meeting people who showed love to Women's Wrestling Talk. My shout outs go to, like, if I can give an award, when Women's Wrestling Talk gets awards, because that's what I want to eventually do, Nikki definitely deserves an award because she was out there banging, getting these interviews, booking interviews, getting the contact information. Shout out to Nikki. Santana's in the chat. Shout to Santana for holding it down for all these after shows. Like, it was insane. So shout out to Santana for the after shows, the writing, all that stuff. And like the whole team for like just keeping it together. And then I think somebody asked about my shirt. Yes, this shirt, I don't want to kind of give you like a bad shot, but this shirt we made for Black History Month. I wore it for my interview with Bianca. She saw it. And this is how I'm going to start planning for next year. She wanted one, and this is the only shirt that I had. But if you go on the website, it's there. But we haven't promoted it. So people love the shirt, and I didn't have extras. So yeah, it's available on the site. So definitely go and check that out. So that is my WrestleMania moment. But yeah, that's I'm sure there's some other stuff, and we'll get into all that. But you guys came here for the news. You didn't come here for the boohoo and the tears. So let's get into it. Let's start off with here's my question to you, because this is your first time doing WWT Live. And I've talked about it on several occasions, and I kind of gave up on the idea. The Rock showing up to WrestleMania, which he didn't. I know. Where's the? This is for The Rock. Bro. So he didn't show up, but ironically, like the next day, he announces that they're doing a live action movie. So what do you think about, like, what did you think of the timing of all this? And were you one of the people who really wanted The Rock to show up for this, for WrestleMania?
I empathize with all the other fans, even though I got the result I felt like should have happened at the end of WrestleMania. And then you, like, the fan in you wants to see the big pop for The Rock, just like when John Cena returned. But it's like the story's being told a different way. And one thing I noticed, because of course we had to improvise in a certain match, is praise be to Snoop Dogg for improvising for Shane McMahon. But I was looking out for The Rock to like tweet something about, hey, you did the people's elbow. I think I saw a screenshot of him commenting on Instagram, the WWE's Instagram. So I feel like he's laying low, but I don't know if I expected him to show up. If he said he wasn't going to show up, I'm going to take him at his word that he had other stuff going on. But the timing of this is interesting because we know my man's needs like really good press right now with the DC fallout. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why not go to the feel good story of Moana and stuff like that? That's him trying to like boost his name up again and kind of, hey, you guys still like me type of thing. When we know people are mad that he didn't show up at Mania. So the timing is peculiar. The timing is kind of like an Agent of Chaos type of thing, if I'm being real. Because like you're trying to take the spotlight away from this and get that positive press. But I see what he's doing. Yeah. But no, I didn't need him at Mania. It would have been cool, but I didn't need it.
Okay. Let me answer this question to Casey before we lose track of it. Leaving the venue was hectic. For those who know me, and I think I have said this on the show, I arrived. It could be the Super Bowl. I really don't care what it is. I arrive late and I leave early for all events. And for WrestleMania day one, I decided to leave. I decided to stay for the whole event, and it was amazing. But getting out was 2.5 hours just to get to the car. So day two, I went back to the old TK. And I got there on time because we were doing press and stuff like that. So shout out to WWE for that. But after Asuka and Bianca, I walked out of that, and I was okay with that. I was okay in my heart. We have stuff on our phones, and I get people want to be there for the experience. But leaving the venue, I wasn't about that life. So it was crazy. But a person that I am about, and I absolutely another person who actually also held it down for us last week. Professor, Mr. Professor's in the building.
Hey, how are you, TK? What's going on, Cedric? Welcome
What's going
aboard.
on? Nice to meet you, bro.
Good to meet you as well.
So we were talking about like our WrestleMania, highs, what we really liked. And both Cedric and I were on the ground, but you watching it from home, and then shout out to you as well for our after show, which, by the way, I mean, if we could do numbers, we're a network, but we're not doing crazy numbers, but that after show did really, really well. So kudos to you guys. What was your highlight for WrestleMania?
Highlight. Wow. It was, I mean, the whole thing was really so good. Like, I mean, I expected it to be solid, but it was so good. I have to say that the men's tag match was highly unexpected in terms of how good it was. I didn't expect it to be nearly as good as it was. Of course, the main events both nights were incredible, but got to give it up to a couple of the entrances because I'm about these entrances. Obviously, Bianca's entrance was really, really powerful with the Divas of Compton. Just being able to be unapologetically black is just an amazing thing on a scale and on a stage like that. But these intros for Dominic Mysterio, oh my, I was screaming. I'm just like, oh my God, Prison Dom is everything. He's everything. And on top of it, I think the meticulous time that WWE took to give us intros that were WrestleMania worthy was really, really powerful. They made a great use of that entire setup. So all of those were highlights for me.
And what say you of The Rock not showing? So here was my theory. I know he said, and I Cedric, you did say it, and we had put this story in the box several times.
Yes.
But Kane was like on the ground because, again, I don't like crowds. So Kane and I went downstairs. We were on the ground. We took the pictures, and Kane knows me, so he knows I'm not. And Kane is a solo bird, so like he's cool. So he took the pictures, all the things. And so I'm like, all right, bet Kane, I'm going to the press, and I probably won't see you until whenever I see you, because by the time you get up, if you get up there, I'll be gone. And so he texted me and he said that they roped off an area for people to come. And I'm like, oh, The Rock is gonna come. He's gonna, mess up the match in one way or the other, and like that's it, in out. And again, I get it. He said he wasn't pulling up, but I was still upset. So what do you think of the fact that, timing wise, like he could announce this on Friday, but he announced it after Mania. It was announced a little bit later. Like, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I'm like you. I really thought the silence from The Rock was because he was going to do a cameo, perhaps at the end of that match, which, a Roman win or loss with The Rock showing up would have sent people crazy. Right. So I definitely expected that to happen because they were so hush-hush and protective of it. So I'm surprised that he did not ultimately show. And this whole Moana thing, I'm like, So you mean the day after the most successful Mania in history, and the day that WWE gets sold, your announcement is Moana. Got it. Okay. And here's the messed up part. You had no details, right? This wasn't like, hey, you know what? We're doing this live action thing. We're recording it now, or, it's going to premiere on such. He had no details. They've cast nothing. I'm like, dude, okay, I get it. You don't want to be connected to wrestling anymore. Fine. Just say that. You went all the way to the other extreme to go grab Disney. And nobody's thinking about Moana today. Nobody's thinking about Disney today, but The Rock. I see you, sir. I got it.
Here you go, Rock. Sorry.
I would say that's very deserved. Very deserved.
All right. Professor, what we got next?
Oh, Lord. Well, have we talked the big story of the day?
Yeah,
have
we
not.
were literally talking about our WrestleMania experiences because
Wow.
and also too shout out to Evan Mack. Evan
Mhm.
Mack. So if you guys go on our website, we got, and there's still more interviews to be uploaded. We got so many interviews, but that Bianca interview was because of Evan Mack. So shout out to
Wow.
Evan Mack. He made that happen because there's some stories I just won't even
Mm-hmm.
that happened there. But Evan, shout out to Evan Mack. Evan Mack, if you guys are familiar with Women's Wrestling Weekly from back in the day, he's one of the original hosts. He got picked up by WWE. He left the show, like all the things. Shout out to Evan Mack because
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And shout out to you for those great interviews, by the way. From Bianca. The Braun Strowman joint has me so weak. And I don't think people understand that is so on brand for you, though. That's why I was like, I'm not surprised by this. Like, this is totally, everybody else would ask, well, how'd you get your start? Blah, blah, blah. You got 3 minutes, you're going to the nipples.
I mean, and it was and if you actually then that was my favorite, but we actually talked about mental health, so definitely go and check out that interview because for people who know or don't know, I've been in therapy for three years just because I got a lot of ish going on, but there's no reason why you should. It's just that I've been in therapy for 3 years. So he was spitting some game, but that's like how he was talking. I'm like, oh, you've been to a therapist because you talk a certain way after you've been with them for a long time. So I was like, have you been doing therapy? And he's like, yeah. And we had a whole conversation about mental health, which was crazy. And it's about wrestling. That's why we're all here. But when it's all said and done, these people are people. You get way more talking about things that beyond who they are. But I just so happened to peep that nipple piercing interview, and I was just like, yo, like, and you're wearing a tight shirt. So it's like, I feel like if you have nipple piercings and you're wearing a tight shirt, you want people to look, and we have questions. So go and check that out on the site. But sorry.
No, that's okay. Those are the interviews that people actually pay attention to, though, are the ones that aren't necessarily the ones that you can get with everybody else. So shout out to you for checking that out and doing that. So kudos. So now then, if there were ever news that would trump WrestleMania, which I didn't think you could, given the magnitude of this incredible WrestleMania, we wake up this morning to the news that the WWE has been sold. They've been sold to Endeavor. Now, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this is, and I don't want to get on my soapbox too soon, but what I've been seeing from some wrestling media concerns me greatly. So I want to talk about what this actually means, okay? So Endeavor is the parent company to the UFC. They purchased the UFC back in 2017, and they've done some really amazing things with the UFC. They've actually worked with WWE for the last 20 years or so, representing them in some other spaces. So this particular connection and relationship is not a new relationship, but it is new in this regard, obviously. So what's going to happen is the UFC and the WWE, there's now going to be a separate company that will encompass both brands. Let me repeat, this is not a merger. I'm hearing a ton of people talk about it's a merger. Clearly, you don't know what a merger is. This is not that. Okay. What this is two brands who will now have oversight from the same company. Now, here's how I know it's not a merger. Because the president of the UFC remains the same. That's Dana White. The president of the WWE remains the same. That's Nick Khan. Now, the CEO sorry, I just lost my complete train of thought. The CEO, I'm just ranting. The CEO of Endeavor, he's going to be the CEO of this new company, which doesn't have a name yet. They're still working on the name for this particular company. So he's going to do that. Vince McMahon is going to become the executive chairman of the board of this new company, whatever name it's going to be. And then Mark Shapiro, who is the current president and COO of Endeavor, he will also be in those same roles for this new company that, again, will oversee the UFC and the WWE. But it is not a merger of the UFC and WWE. Both brands will still be doing what they do. But what's intriguing is they're going to have access to some of the same resources, which really is game changing when you think about that. And so you talk about the ultimate kind of power deal. You got WWE, who is valued at around $9.3 billion. You've got the UFC valued around $12 billion. We're talking $21 billion of value to set up a brand new company. And so the folks from Endeavor will have 51% of the stock. The WWE stockholders will have 49%. That's how that's going to go. When they set up the board for this, 6 members of the board will be picked by Endeavor. The other 5 will be picked by WWE. And this is how this thing is going to work. So they're saying that the deal itself will officially close around the 4th quarter. They will have a name for this, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then that name will end up eventually on the New York Stock Exchange 4 to 6 months once they finally get clearance from the government and all of that jazz. What does this mean? Well, this means right now a lot of WWE looks the same in terms of the people who are doing the things that they're doing. So there's that. But where this also gets interesting is, you remember when we first started hearing rumblings of a sale at the top of the year when Vince McMahon came back, one of the reasons potentially for sale was because the whole media rights discussion was coming up, because that deal that they currently have with Peacock, Fox, NBC is set to end in 2024. Well, with this now going to Endeavor, Endeavor is going to handle the media rights conversations, which they do a banner job at doing. So they are really good at doing this. They position UFC very well. So things are going to get very, very lucrative for WWE. Very lucrative. According to the CEO of Endeavor, he's saying that basically the price that was charged for WWE's media rights was kind of pennies on the dollar. So he says they're going to make sure that on this next round of conversations that they're going to get the money that they deserve. So that's pretty exciting. It's a really big day, and you kind of can get the lay of the land in terms of how people feel by looking at how members of the WWE are talking about this. I've seen posts from employees. I've seen posts from wrestlers, and nobody is mad about this. So this gets very, very, very interesting. And in the words of Vince McMahon, this is one of the biggest days of his life, which I'm just saying, wow, that's pretty significant. And then there's this whole new look that Vince has, which is another conversation, maybe for another day. Maybe we get into it now. But you know it's big when Vince McMahon actually does an interview. This is the first interview we've heard from Vince McMahon since all of these things happened, you know, back at last summer. So it's a big deal. Vince McMahon selling the WWE, $9.3 billion. Oh, and I should also mention that based on the deal, Nick Khan gets a $15 million bonus. Triple H gets a $5 million bonus. And then there's this clause in here of an undisclosed amount of money that Vince McMahon gets from this. Plus, Vince McMahon retains control of his IP. This is brilliant. Let me speak to that, Boza. Boza said there are allegations that this deal is the reason why Roman retained. Not at all. The word on the street actually is the plan was for Roman to retain the whole time, to which I say there were two things at work here if we're going to dovetail into that. One is, which is more valuable right now to WWE? Is it Cody finishing that story, or is it Roman potentially getting to 1,000 days? And I think Roman at 1,000 days is much more valuable right now. We've got a lot of places we can go with this story. With Roman as champion, the Usos not as champion. What's Cody going to do? Are we actually going to see a chase from Cody to become champion, which we have not seen yet? And I had this very interesting thought. I didn't even mention this last night. Here's an interesting thought for some wrestling historians. You might appreciate this. Could we actually be looking at the reincarnation of Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes in what we're seeing right now with Roman and Cody. If you ever followed that, Dusty did not get the title on his first go round. In fact, this turned into a pretty major feud where Dusty couldn't get the title off of Flair for a while, and then it took him a while to actually get it. So I think there may be more long-term storytelling happening than people actually realize, which is kind of exciting. So yeah, there we go.
I just had to let you, because you was excited. I was like, I want to
let you cook.
With that being said, Cedric, what do you think of all the things that WWE, the fact that they announced it right after, which I believe you called it, Professor, but I know Kane called it when I talked to him on Thursday. So what do you think of all the sale, or the I don't want to say merger because I don't want Professor to get upset at me, the new deal with Endeavor and WWE?
I think my man labeled everything perfectly. Like, it's a merger. I think where a lot of the fan trepidation comes from, and honestly, it's just looking at the business model of UFC that Endeavor's holding, is you think automatically, oh, is the network going to go away? Are we going to have to go back to a pay-per-view model where we're spending $50 a month or more to watch a PLE? And those are questions that can be answered in a few quarters from now, honestly. A smart businessman wouldn't change something that's already working. And if we've seen all the records and the gates of this Mania actually broke this weekend, we know that things are working on all cylinders. So this just means more money for everyone. And if you looked at Vince's interviews today, he said that it was always going to be the case that he would sell at some point if it made sense and it takes care of everybody. So piggybacking off the lay of the land there, if people are seemingly happy, that just means that everybody eats. And at the end of the day, if we want our performers to be happy in this company, that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, I have no words, because I love it. Money makes money. And I said I had no words, but I have a few words. I do like the fact it's perfect. They're keeping the narrative going. This is the ultimate of marketing as far as how they plan everything, minus The Rock, because I think that was a lone wolf. They talked to WWE about that. But I think it's the long game. Like we invested in the 3 or 4 days as far as Mania. For those who watched it on TV, for those who were on the ground, like, we invested all this time, and to kind of button or bow tie it with the sale, which is something that they talked about for like 3 months ago, that everybody was all over the place, and then it went quiet. For them to kind of tie it up with that sale, now even makes it more exciting, meaning that we are excited. We are excited. Then with Roman, we got disappointed because I wanted Roman to win. However, I was disappointed in when he did, because I'm like, I don't know if this is the right call. But then I was thinking, okay, Roman has it, the Usos don't. That's a whole nother story in itself. So it's like, okay,
layers.
Right. So now what are we gonna see with Raw? And the fact that we're seeing Vince talking, and then he also sent out apologies, that's a whole nother thing. So
it'd be crazy if he actually starts the show tonight. Honestly, that would be interesting.
Yes.
It would be very interesting, because you're right. We've not seen Vince McMahon on WWE television ever since he retired. And so even him coming back was real quiet. I will say that I got to give WWE kudos. Remember at the top of the year when Vince came back, and then they started talking about the Saudis buying WWE, the world went crazy. WWE made one statement, and then they said, we're going to get you focused on what's happening in this ring. And Sammy and the bloodline went crazy. And before you knew it, people forgot that there was even talk of a sale.
Right.
So I think even the timing of the announcement of this sale was huge, because to announce a sale on the heels of a massive WWE WrestleMania says that the sale was actually really good business. They weren't going to turn around and poke a hole in this massive balloon with this sale talk.
Right.
So that should also give us an idea. And let's just think about it. If your sister organization is the UFC, that actually, in a weird way, and I hate using this term, but you'll get it, legitimizes the WWE. And I hate using that term because, people already feel kind of crazy. But I feel like when the UFC is your partner, and I'd like for us to, if people are trying to think, how do I look at it this way. If a parent has two children, or you have one child and then you bring another child in, they're not the same child. They're two different children, just with the same parents. That's what we have here with UFC, WWE, and Endeavor, or whatever this new company is going to be.
Right.
It's the same deal. But if that's the case, it's a different kind of strength that WWE has. They're so used to being the lone wolf, meaning we own all of our stuff. It's just us. We're now operating off of the strength of our power. But now you take an organization like Endeavor, which represents, oh my God, from Premier League to Major League Soccer to the Olympics, like they represent some pretty big situations. For WWE to be mentioned in that conversation, what this does is it solidifies WWE as a global brand without question. But it also puts such amazing distance between WWE and everybody else in the wrestling game. Nobody has this kind of capital. We're in the billions right now. This is a much different conversation right now, much different era that we're living in.
And they also mentioned the crossover too. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing WWE people at UFC events.
Yes.
We already have been seeing UFC people at WWE events. So that crossover, bringing people in, is going to be there. But what's interesting though, a lot of us, because I don't know, we talked to so many people, but I made mention of that typically after WrestleMania, there are, they do let go of some people. Yes. Although they haven't really, do you want to kind of touch on that? They haven't really let go of as many people as they used to in the past.
Yeah, they haven't. Under normal circumstances, they call it, I forgot what they call it. Some weird day that they call it, which usually happens in a couple of weeks. Now that it doesn't look like that's coming anytime soon. But there are a couple of wrestlers who, oddly enough, are asking for their release, which I think is very interesting. And that would be Rip Fowler and Jagger Reed. We remember them as the Grizzled Young Veterans. They are a part of the group known as Schism, but they have requested to be released from WWE. Now, we have not exactly heard why, though if you've been paying attention to their career, when they showed up in WWE, they were a part of NXT UK. They had won the NXT UK Tag Championships. They were a really solid team. They came over to NXT. They were doing big things. And then suddenly, as 2.0 showed up, a place for grizzled young veterans didn't really exist anymore. And so they found themselves, transformed into what's happening with the Schism. And obviously they are not happy, which that can happen. And I get that. So they're requesting their release, and we'll see what happens with that. Really, really interesting, though, because we're seeing fewer and fewer people request their release from WWE. Haven't heard many people say that, certainly since the summer. So it'll be interesting. Will the WWE grant it? I imagine that they will. I don't see them necessarily fighting this one, so we'll see what happens.
Cedric?
And I think I might have saw a report where it might have been granted. And like you said, we haven't seen a lot of it lately. I think the most vocal person I've seen lately that kind of got swept under the rug was Mustafa Ali. But when I look at the career of the Grizzled Young Veterans, we know NXT UK is no more, but we're talking about a very respected tag team over there.
Yes.
Very respected. 1K champion, had a solid run in NXT Black and Gold. Then we get to 2.0 where everything's changed. It's more character driven. So what did they do? They put them, they took their names away, changed their names, or were had former names, and you give them a character with this Schism thing, which is kind of like Joe Gacy's Wyatt family, if you would. Sure. And be that as it may, to me, it's not really working. Were they getting more airtime, more TV time, but they weren't winning as a result. So I can easily see how they're unhappy. So I hope they find greener pastures if they do grant the release, if it has actually happened. But I can totally see the fall from grace here, where they were up here, top of the tag division, getting featured, getting booked consistently. Now they're in this this weird faction where they're just pretty much jobbers. So I can understand. I don't, like you said, with the new Endeavor deal and things like that, I don't expect more of that to happen. Some guys WWE likes to latch onto, hold onto, because they do have a place that are planned for you. These guys, I think they would will mend the fences and give them what they desire.
Yeah, we'll see. Stephanie say, I wonder where this will leave Ava Raine. I mean, I don't want to talk nepotism, but I think
she'll be fine.
She'll be fine.
Yeah,
she'll be fine. She'll be all right.
They'll likely find.
I don't think that was really working out for her anyway.
Well, interesting.
We have time for like 2 more stories. Dealer's choice. What do we want to talk about?
I want to talk coming from seeing this live and then finding out what it was. I was on my phone looking through the tweets, stuff like that, but seeing Shane McMahon tear his quad and coming from somebody who is just I'm about 15, 16 months removed from ACL surgery, it breaks my heart to see that off something that was seemingly routine maneuver, doing a leapfrog, jumping over your opponent. And you can see it like live. You see the buckle, and if you were there in attendance, I know TK was there. Just seeing, I knew something was wrong as soon as you look up and you see the jumbotron and you see the camera immediately go to the Miz, and it's focusing on the Miz, and everything's scrambling. You see the black suits in the ring trying to tend to Shane. I just wish that man a speedy recovery, because a quad injury is no joke. There were a lot of memes going around, and that's all in good jest, but in all sincerity, we saw Vince decades ago, have the double quad tear. So no joke, especially for Shane, who was a big pop. Pat McAfee, good pop. Shane, big pop.
Yeah.
Big pop, especially because the last time we saw Shane was in the Royal Rumble last year, and we know how that ended.
Right.
So wish Shane a speedy recovery. That quad injury is no joke, but seeing that live and seeing how they pivoted and scrambled, and shout out to Snoop Dogg, because improvising on the biggest show of the year just like that, like that was amazing. He made it. He made the show go on, and stuff like that usually doesn't happen. So turned a sour moment into a big moment, and now that moment's been trending worldwide, which is beautiful to see.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to Stephanie about that, I think this morning. I don't know, the days are blurred, but yeah, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to happen that way, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like, shout to, I mean, that's the great thing about Snoop. He is so well-rounded that it's just like, all right, bet the show has to go on. And you know, it's like I would love, you know how they do it in the NFL where they're mic'd. And I know they can't. I know it can't really be done in wrestling, but I would have loved to have the mic, like the ref mic, Snoop mic, like everybody mic, just to because you can. I mean, if you watch wrestling enough, the good wrestlers are great at hiding it, but the ones who are still trying to, you see the little, all right, I'm gonna do, like you see the movement. So I would love to, like, if they were mic, just what was going on, or if here's on and they figured it out.
I was gonna say what happened. One of the interesting criticisms that happened of this WrestleMania was at times the cameras were too close, so you could hear certain things being called. But in this moment, you actually could see the referee Jessica call the people's elbow, and that's what he did. So it was all so much on the fly, and I got nervous because when I saw the way Shane's leg buckled and then he tried to get up and couldn't stand, I was like, this is not good. And I didn't know what was going to, but I'm telling you, Snoop, it's that old school training, you know, how, you know, when things don't go well, somebody just pitches in and you just grab it and you run with it. It's those years of doing that. Yeah. And he just came in and knew what to do. And oh man.
Yeah. Because anybody else, I mean, I mean, I can't even imagine anybody else that represents LA that would have been able to do that. Right. Like, no, like, you know, I mean, yeah.
The nerves in that moment.
That could do what he did and then on the fly do what he did.
Right. Right.
I
It
can't. I
was
can't.
incredible.
I can't think. And
It's
then
incredible.
just being so
Amazing
cool,
work.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew it wasn't a work when I heard. Hey, I don't think the mic was supposed to pick this up, but I knew it was a work when he was like, "You all right, cuh?" And I was like,
Right.
I it was hysterical to me. I was like, "Oh, this is serious. Like Shane's
Right.
really hurt."
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
heard that, and I was just like,
He went to straight baby boy mode
Yeah.
at WrestleMania.
I don't think that was in the script. With that being
totally
said,
did.
I don't know if we have time to touch on this, but I kind of do. It's not in the rundown. Giselle Shaw.
Yeah.
Do you
Oh
wanna
yeah, let's talk about that.
brought it up?
So the Giselle Shaw situation. So basically, for those who don't know, obviously WrestleMania had a lot of things going on that weekend. One of the big events is WrestleCon, which is not directly connected to WWE and WrestleMania, but it is where a lot of independent and other stars from other organizations, Impact, New Japan, AEW, etc., show up for autograph signings. They have matches and shows. Matter of fact, the Multiverse United show that involved Impact and New Japan was sponsored by WrestleCon. It was part of that.
Oh, amazing show. I forgot
Incredible.
we went there.
Incredible, right? And that's kind of one of the other cool things about WrestleMania week is it really isn't just WrestleMania Saturday, Sunday. It's really all week long. But at one of the WrestleCon signings on Friday, Giselle Shaw was there, and WWE Hall of Famer Rick Steiner was there. And according to Giselle Shaw, Rick Steiner had some pretty disparaging things to say about her. And you know, I won't even repeat some of those things, but they just were not good at all. And so she went on to the socials to talk about it. As a result, WrestleCon ended up banning Rick Steiner from all of its future events. Impact Wrestling made a statement in terms of their support to Giselle Shaw, and WrestleCon made another statement in terms of their support of Giselle Shaw as well. And so it's really interesting. Now, there are some, personally, I really wonder if WWE will pay any attention to this. Obviously, Steiner is a Hall of Famer for WWE, also the dad of Braun Breaker, who lost the championship Saturday. I honestly don't think those two were related. I think Carmelo was supposed to win anyway, but I'm sure WWE will want to distance themselves from Rick Steiner. And the interesting thing is, I think we were always worried about Scott. I don't think we were ever worried about Rick just kind of popping off randomly. But that's what happened according to Giselle Shaw. I don't know that there is like video or audio, not that we necessarily need it. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy situation that I appreciate. I appreciate WrestleCon stepping up, Impact stepping up. But yeah, I do think that the timing of that was coincidental relative to Carmelo winning. I think it was just in the cards for Carmelo to win anyway. And most people didn't really know about the situation come Saturday. It kind of really became public late Friday night, early Saturday is when people started getting it. So I don't think it would have impacted the results of Stand and Deliver one way or the other. Now, I'll be intrigued to see what happens with Braun. Like, does he debut tonight on Raw? Is he going to show up Tuesday night on NXT? Those might be more telling statements than anything else at this point.
And honestly, I think we'll find out no later than Friday night. We'll find out because with that hierarchy there, we saw Rick Steiner be a very vocal part of the Braun Breaker storyline just last year. On TV a lot for the first time, WWE programming in probably decades.
Right.
You would think that I don't think they're correlated at all. And I appreciate seeing the solidarity from the different promotions standing with Giselle. But with this, because there was a post-match interview last night with Gunther saying that he doesn't believe that the man has arrived yet that can defeat me. I immediately thought that's Braun Breaker, because I believe Braun Breaker was the last person to actually hang a L over Gunther clean back in NXT. So I believe that's going to be the thing to take place either not tonight, but Friday night as the next challenger. So if that doesn't happen, then we can probably obviously see that there's a little correlation. They're going to cool off Braun for a little bit from being in the larger audience.
Yeah. I think, and I'm never a fan of the call ups, but I think he's ready. I think it makes sense. And I don't know if you saw the tweet talking about Rick from Chris Jericho, which was very, very not damning, but if somebody's co-signing on you being, excuse my French, an asshole, then you know it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. With that being said, we have 5 minutes left.
Oh gosh.
There's y'all don't understand. There's so much to talk about, but there's so little time. Let's, you know what, Cedric, you're the newbie. Is there anything that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Man, this has been a great WrestleMania week. I think one thing I saw that was beautiful, just seeing the Sammy story be told in front of millions of fans worldwide. And it harkened me back to seeing Sami Zayn's interview with Ariel Helwani maybe a few weeks back, where he said, I think I can, like, I know I'm not the prototypical media guy, but I think I can answer questions of these things. And then seeing him on the Today Show this morning, I thought that was a full come home moment. And it was beautiful to see, because those aren't your prototypical, like, quote unquote, Vince guys in front of the camera. And they're sitting right next to Bianca Belair with the tag team championships of all things, giving their just due, talking about their long career dating back to Quebec. I thought that was beautiful. And it really touched my heart to see that. Like I mentioned, this is my first Mania in 5-6 years since the last Orlando show. And also, TK, hearing your story about Xavier Woods was touching, because I'm if you see behind me, I'm New Day out here. I have every piece of merchandise, every shirt. So I think that's dope too, that you guys have stayed connected for so long, because they're honestly my favorite faction of all time. Just to cap a perfect weekend.
So dope.
And Bonner and Professor, my bad.
I know, it's fine.
Mr. Professor, is there anything you want to touch on? Any quick story you want to talk about?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I really loved seeing was all of the love from the Black media community in pro wrestling during WrestleMania. I will tell you,
a thug tier.
Listen, it did something so special for me to watch, and as much as I wanted to be out in LA, I wanted to be out in LA to connect with the people that we've been talking to for the last year and change. You know, the genuine love that exists in the African American pro wrestling. And I say that specifically because there was a time where there was no Black wrestling media community. And so now that there is, and that we all have love for each other and nobody's bickering or mad or angry, and all of the pictures that I saw and all of the love and the experience that I was seeing, that
and shout to WWE, because the junket was full of a lot of not only Black media, but also there were women. It wasn't you know, no shade to my white guys out there who love and watch us, but it wasn't, you know, a sea of white men in their 50s who, you know, it was very it was amazing to see. Like, the press junket was, you know, it wasn't United Nations, but it was, I'm willing to bet 10 years ago it was nowhere near what I saw this year.
I thought I saw Triple H say it was like the most media they've had. Like, it was like 250 different media outlets that they had represented at WrestleMania, which I just thought, that's incredible. And so whenever I watch these things and I get to see people that I know asking questions or their it's so wonderful, and it's so refreshing. And in a business that can be cutthroat, I am so glad that this is the kind of thing that we get to see in the community. So that's one of my biggest moments from the weekend.
Yeah, I will piggyback off of that. It was nice to see everybody. It was nice to meet new people. I mean, like, Cedric, you're not new, but you're new. But I'm glad I went. So actually, first off, shout out to Kane. Kane was like my Paul Heyman this weekend. For people who know me really, really well, I'm actually an introvert. That's why I leave. Like, I love people, but so Kane came back from out of town, and he was legitimately like Paul Heyman this weekend. He was introduced, like I kind of, once everything kind of settles, I'm curious to think what people like thought, because he would like chop it up and then he'd bring me over and he's like, this is the, and like hyping up women's wrestling talk. So like I said at the beginning, shout out to Nikki, but definitely shout out to Kane, because Kane was Kaning in all spaces, because Kane loved to talk. And it was amazing to see. Like I just kind of like I knew the brand was in safe hands. And like when I left to go to the press box, I'm like, yo, don't get arrested, and do you. So shout out to Kane. He like, there's so many stories over the last 4 days, which is insane. And he's done so much, and there's so many things coming down the pipeline, just because of introductions that like he peeped it, he finagled it, he did the caning, and then like, that was amazing to see. Like I said, the brand is growing, and it's just it was just like I said, it gives me goosebumps. Like the fact that I met Cedric at Tom's and we connected, and here you are. He's like, yeah, I'll come on. Like, let's go. Like that. Like that's amazing. Like that's like, because I'm willing to bet, no shade, but if we were like a janky little brand, you've been like, yeah, I'll hit you up like when I have time. Like I appreciate doing that. So it's just so many things, so many flowers to give. It's like, it feels like a whole new era for women's wrestling. And next WrestleMania, you don't. It's
going to be special.
There's already plans for us. So thank you guys. But without you guys who are watching, and the day oneers, like Women's Wrestling Weekly, the Bozas, shout out to Boza, like those ones from the very beginning, the day oneers who like seen the evolution. Like without y'all, none of this would be happening. So it's just like, it's just so crazy. I'm like beyond excited. Like it's just amazing. So there's so many things popping. But with that being said, and then also we're adding like 3 or 4 shows in the next 3 weeks, which I don't even know how it's possible. I just did. We're gonna play it, but we're gonna be changing this up again. So just so you guys realize the magnitude of how many shows we have. Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WoW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now. So yeah, Bosa doing the breaking news. Apparently 8 to 9, there will be no commercials. I'm actually on my way to Raw. I don't know if Nikki and I will meet at Raw, but I'm going to be meeting Nikki around the vicinity. So you see some pictures of that. So it's gonna. I'm really curious to see what that all looks like. But before we get out of here, how did you like it? I don't want to put you on the spot, Cedric, but I'm kind of putting you on the spot for everybody to live. This is usually why I ask after the show, but we're here. How did you like your experience on WWT Live?
I loved it, man. I just love hearing a different perspective of wrestling fans, and like just piggyback off the professor, like in Black media. I think that's been beautiful. Just being at the Ringer meet and greet and meeting so many dope faces that look like me, that not just do podcasting, but they write, they report, they do all these different things. I think that's been beautiful. And coming to a network like this, just to have a bit of time to talk to you guys, thank you. because this is dope. I love breaking bread and talking with people about wrestling, about this sport that I love, and this is great. This has been awesome.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at says, that's CEDD_SAYS. Sorry, that's on Twitter. Twitter says, and Instagram at said is the answer.
There it is. And Mr. Professor, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Bonnerfied on all of the platforms. You can check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling on IWTV. Also, my commentary with Battle Slam on Fight TV, and my work with the Nightmare Factory on YouTube.
And I mean, if you guys didn't catch the commercial quickly, if you're not following us on social media, you need to. So much. There's so many pictures that we still have to drop. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel because there's probably a good 10 interviews that we need to drop. Wow. So stay tuned to all of that. www.talkpod.com, our website, our new website, y'all. I know I've been talking about it for a minute. Our new website is on deck. It should be coming in the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe sooner. Just no words. So definitely just keep plugging in, keep tuning in, tune into all our shows. You can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Thank you guys so much for watching WWT Live and tuning into Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao, y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.